Hello, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about Beabadoobee, an artist who was sampled on Deathbed by Powfu, a song that would end up passing over 1 billion streams, and it was just her very first song. Beabadoobee is a Filipino singer and songwriter who was born on June 3rd of 2000. Despite being born in the Philippines, her family would move to London when she was just 3 years old. At 5 years old, Beabadoobee would start playing the violin, and this would go on for the next 7 years. But when she was 7 years old, she would start writing music for the very first time. At first, she did it for classmates because she was too nervous to perform for the school talent show, but she decided to give lyrics to other students so they could perform instead. Despite starting in the first grade, she would go on to write songs about anything that was going on in her life and use it as a form of therapy. She felt as though she liked writing very honestly because that's what they were known for in the Philippines. Early on, she was inspired by Pinoy music and early pop and rock from the 80s, but as time grew on, she went through many different phases and would end up listening to many different types of music. So saying who she's inspired by is kind of hard to do, but I'll just let her tell you herself.
This band called The Vaccines, I'm obsessed with them. I want to be like Kimmy Dawson. Kimmy Dawson because of Moldy Peaches. I want to be Kim Gordon. There's this band called The Itchy Worms, and obviously just kind of original, like OPM, original Pinoy music. Blink-182, Green Day, which is super cool. Green Day's sick. But then, One Direction. I was obsessed with One Direction.
The Juno soundtrack was huge for you. You've also mentioned the Beatles a lot, and Elliott Smith is big for you. But you absolutely, in capital letters, love Pavement.
I love Pavement. Yes, because I wish I was Stephen Malcolmus. Oh my god, man, I love Paul McCartney.
She lost interest in the violin when she was about 12 years old, but when she was close to turning 18, her father decided that he would buy her a guitar, and she would learn how to play it through YouTube tutorials and learning from some friends. One thing she immediately realized is that it's much easier to sing with a guitar than it is with a violin, and it just gels a bit better. So, at 17 years old, she would write her first ever song, Coffee. At the time, she would describe it as a very simple instrumental combined with the songwriting that she had been doing for a very long time. Coffee, despite being her very first track, didn't take long to get much attention. The song would end up blowing very quickly, and before Beabadoobee was even considering taking music seriously. She wasn't really prepared for all the attention she was getting, and much of it had to do with a song by Powfu named Deathbed.
I don't wanna fall asleep, I don't wanna pass away. I've been thinking of our future cause I'll never see those days.
After all the attention came in, she would stick with the name Beabadoobee despite her not really taking the name very seriously right away and just throwing it out there because once again, she wasn't taking music seriously. She was 17 years old and still in high school when the song blew up. She would be doing performances and things like that and going to school the very next day. It doesn't seem like Beabadoobee was exactly stoked that the song Deathbed took off. She wasn't asking for the fame or anything like that. She wasn't trying to take music very seriously. And then all of a sudden, she was being thrown into the mainstream with label offers, a large fan base, and a lot of responsibility for someone who just days before didn't have any of that. It seems as though she also felt a bit conflicted because she didn't think the song was anything that special and that she didn't do anything that incredible. For example, the song that blew up, Deathbed, the sample was much different than what her original song sounded like, but both of them did do fantastic numbers. Again, she considers it a basic instrumental. It was just one or two chords that would be switching tempo at certain times and things like that, with just the songwriting that she had been doing since she was 7 years old. I do want to make sure I also stress that she does understand that it was an overall positive for her life. She had an opportunity to sign with Dirty Hit, a label that had multiple artists that she was a fan of and multiple bands that she was a fan of. She got to work with a producer who was the producer of one of her favorite bands, and she was a fan of her producer. She gives him a lot of credit for her music sounding good after she blew up. With that being said, she was catapulted into the mainstream as a brand new artist, and she herself was able to prove that she had what it takes to stay there, and she needs to give herself some credit for that. Now remember, this was all happening while Beabadoobee was still in high school. Even the label meeting was right next to where she was still going to school at the time. With that being said, school wasn't being amazing to her because she was getting pretty terrible grades and would end up actually getting expelled because of her grades. The school would later say that they didn't mean to expel her, but she feels that the school didn't like her. Either way, she ended up going back and finishing school anyway. It's crazy to think about how a high school student would put out a song just a few weeks after learning to play the guitar with some simple chords and the songwriting skills that she had been developing since she was 7 years old. But it looked like Dirty Hit knew exactly what they were doing when signing her to the label, because she now averages millions of streams per song, has 10 million monthly listeners, and for someone who was once a beginner, I would say she proved that she deserves to be in the mainstream. Also, just to throw this out there, doing research for this video, I didn't know who Beabadoobee was before this, but just, again, she seems like a very likable, unusual, like, she wasn't ready for the mainstream, but in the best way. She's still a fan of a lot of the people. She's using her platform that she has to do things like message Tom Hanks and his wife because she really wants to have a Tom Hanks feature for some reason. And she would go on and literally, I'll show the clip right after this, but she would message his wife, not because she cares about getting a song with his wife who makes music, but just because she sees that as a way to get closer to Tom Hanks.
I even DM'd his wife because I found out she made music. I didn't even listen to her music. I was like, collab? Question mark? Just so I could just, just be like, yo, where's like your husband at? Like, where's Tom Hanks?
She also, for some reason, really wants to be a nursery school teacher, which I think is like elementary school here. I'm not sure. Maybe it's preschool. And she has constantly mentioned wanting to make a soundtrack for a movie. So who knows? Maybe on your next favorite movie, Beabadoobee will be on the soundtrack. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy, and please subscribe.